This is a case that's been bounced around back and forth throughout the court system.
The U.S. Supreme Court has just issued a major ruling.
Major Second Amendment case.
Major Supreme Court ruling.
Gun control targets. Ruger, but will it work? Ruger, one of America's most iconic firearm manufacturers, is now under fire. A powerful gun control group has issued a bold demand, telling Ruger to immediately cease production of one of its newest pistols. But unlike others who backed down under pressure, Ruger's track record suggests a very different response. This could turn into a pivotal legal and political standoff that will impact every gun owner watching this video. Today, we break down exactly what's happening, who's behind this push, why the RXM pistol is at the center of it all, and how this plays into a nationwide strategy to restrict guns by going straight to the source of the manufacturers. If you care about the Second Amendment, this is the story you cannot afford to miss. The place where we break down the law, the politics, and the real story behind today's firearm headlines. Make sure to subscribe right now so you never get caught off guard. Let's get into it. Part 1. Ruger's historic resistance. Ruger is not a new name in these battles. The company has long been in the crosshairs of anti-gun pressure campaigns, but it's never been quick to fold. Their past shows a pattern of deliberate, unapologetic responses to coordinated attempts to limit gun ownership through legal or corporate tactics. Ruger previously refused to comply with shareholder demands for a violence impact report. The company has historically declined to cave to activist calls for firearm tracking systems. In response to pressure in 2018 and again in 2022, Ruger stated their products are lawful and misuse lies with the user, not the manufacturer. Unlike other companies, Ruger has maintained that litigation threats do not override constitutional rights. Their strategy seems to be built on one core idea: accountability cannot be transferred to manufacturers when bad actors break the law. And that approach is not just legal, it is strategic, because once a company accepts liability for the misuse of its products, it opens the floodgates. The entire industry could be next. Part 2, the Glock precedent and its ripple effect. Everytown is playing a game of dominoes. They started with Glock and now they want Ruger. But the Glock situation, while similar on the surface, is very different in structure and outcome. Glock's changes may have given fuel to future pressure, and Ruger knows it. Glock ended their legacy line and promised a redesign in response to pressure. The RXM was accused of being similar, but there is no equivalent data connecting it to crime. Glock's compliance is now being used as leverage to demand the same from Ruger. The legal strategy here is to cite one company's surrender as proof that others must follow. This is a dangerous road. If Ruger backs down, gun control groups may never need courts or Congress again. They can simply force changes through brand pressure, media, and fear of lawsuits. This is why Glock's decision is more than a company shift. It is now being weaponized to alter industry standards. And Ruger is the next major test. Part 3. Everytown's real goal. This is not just about one pistol. This is about reshaping the entire firearm marketplace through intimidation. Everytown knows they are losing in the courts, so they are trying to bypass legal losses by targeting the companies directly. The letter to Ruger cited no evidence of crime, only speculative claims. They referenced online videos, not law enforcement reports or judicial findings. The demand included immediate product removal without regulatory process. It used Glock's capitulation as a baseline, pressuring Ruger to do the same. What does that mean? It means Everytown is not using facts, they are using fear. And it also means the target is not just Ruger, it is every company watching this unfold. The implication is simple: if Ruger bends, smaller companies will too. It sets a precedent that ends up being far more dangerous than any legislation because it happens behind closed doors. Part 4. Ruger's legal leverage. Ruger has more power than people realize. Unlike Glock, the RXM is not sold in California or Maryland. That reduces its exposure to the jurisdictions most likely to file suit or enact bans. Ruger also has a long history of separating corporate policy from political noise. Ruger's past responses to litigation threats have been rooted in constitutional defenses. The company has made clear that product misuse is not a manufacturing flaw. Their products meet federal legal standards and are distributed lawfully. They are not reliant on police contracts or state contracts that increase leverage. This gives Ruger flexibility. They can choose their battles, and they are not trapped by financial dependencies the way some manufacturers might be. The smart move now would be to reject the premise that accusations require immediate change, because the moment you do that, the narrative flips, and the company becomes the victim of corporate bullying rather than a contributor to violence. Part 5. The slippery slope of could be converted. At the heart of the letter from Everytown is that the RXM could be converted. Not that it has been, not that it is being used in crimes, just that it might be possible. No data was provided showing the RXM at any crime scene. The only proof cited was the existence of modding videos. ATF's numbers show less than 1% of all crime guns involve converted pistols. Even those numbers do not confirm that the conversion was actually used in a crime. If Ruger folds here, it sets a precedent that a mere possibility is enough to trigger design changes. That changes the entire rules of engagement, because then it is no longer about what a gun has done, but what someone says it could do. That is not justice, it is pre-crime enforcement, and it has no place in American legal tradition. Part 6. Why this could backfire on gun control advocates. There's a hidden risk for Everytown and groups applying this pressure. If Ruger takes this public, if they lay out the facts, the backlash could be enormous. Gun owners, manufacturers, and even neutral observers might start questioning the entire legitimacy of pressure-based product bans. Public exposure could shift sentiment toward defending Ruger's legal right to manufacture. Transparency would reveal the absence of crime statistics supporting the demand. Retailers and distributors may rally behind Ruger, fearing they are next. Gun rights organizations could use this as a fundraising and political rallying point. And there's precedent for this. Smith & Wesson once bowed to pressure and paid the price in public trust. But when companies fight back like Daniel Defense or SIG Sauer, they often win support, not just in court, but in culture. If Everytown pushes too hard without evidence, they risk triggering a much larger legal and political response. Part 7. What gun owners should do now. This case is not just about Ruger. It is about a trend, a tactic, a quiet way to dismantle gun rights without touching the Second Amendment directly. And that means you, as a law-abiding gun owner, need to stay informed and alert. Watch for product removals that don't involve legislation or regulation. Follow cases where activist groups bypass courts to target manufacturers. Stay involved with gun rights organizations, tracking these pressure campaigns. Be aware that today's target could be tomorrow's precedent. You should also be cautious about buying into mainstream narratives too quickly. When pressure groups present emotion as evidence, it is often hiding the lack of real data. The fight for your rights will not always come in the form of courtroom drama or sweeping legislation. Sometimes it will come in boardrooms, private letters, and quiet removals, and that is why you need to be watching. The fight is moving behind the scenes. This situation with Ruger may seem like a single story. One pistol, one manufacturer, one pressure campaign. But it's not. It is part of a much broader shift in strategy by those who seek to restrict the Second Amendment without ever touching a vote. They are moving the fight into corporate meetings, into product liability scare tactics, into social media pressure that demands companies act as lawmakers. And if we let them win here, if we let Everytown bully Ruger into submission, it won't stop. Glock gave them the opening. Now they are pushing through that door. But Ruger doesn't have to follow, and neither do we. This is the moment to raise awareness, to stand behind companies that stand behind you, to speak up while there's still time, to fight back against the policy by pressure. If you value your rights, your tools, and your freedom, now is the time to pay attention. And let's keep exposing these quiet tactics before they become standard. We're just getting started.